Your soulmate just learned you're about to leave. And they panicked. My beloved child, something shifted the moment your soulmate learned that you may be about to leave. Until now, they believed there would always be more time, another day to speak, another chance to show you what they truly feel, another moment to finally stop hiding behind silence. But suddenly, that comfortable belief disappeared. The thought of you moving forward without them hit differently than they expected, and their emotions changed almost instantly. They began replaying every conversation, every quiet moment, every opportunity they allowed to pass. And then came the realization they were not prepared for: you were never standing still waiting forever. You have your own path, your own future, and your own choices. Don't skip, because what they realized next is the part that changes the entire meaning of their silence. They started asking themselves one question again and again: what if I waited too long? That question awakened feelings they had been trying to keep controlled. Suddenly, all the things they thought they could say someday felt like things that needed to be said now. But there is something even bigger beneath this. They didn't simply become emotional because you might leave. They became emotional because your absence forced them to understand your value in a way your presence never could. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and the next realization explains why they may no longer be willing to remain silent. Here is where everything becomes surprising. Your soulmate had created an entire picture in their mind of how this connection would unfold. They imagined they could take their time. They believed the bond between you would remain exactly where they left it while they figured themselves out. But learning that you could leave shattered that picture. Suddenly, they imagined a future where they could no longer casually wonder about you, where your attention belonged somewhere else, where the opportunities they once had were only memories. And that possibility revealed something enormous: they had become far more emotionally attached to you than they had admitted, even to themselves. Don't skip. Their reaction was not only about losing contact, it was about losing the future they secretly pictured. They remembered little details about you that they thought they had forgotten. Your words. Your energy. The way certain moments with you felt completely different from moments with anyone else. Then another realization arrived, and this one surprised them most of all: they had been waiting for the perfect moment, while you were quietly becoming strong enough to continue without them. That changed everything. For the first time, they understood that hesitation has consequences. Something huge is waiting for you, because once that truth settled in, their thoughts moved from "maybe someday" to "what can I do now?" And that is exactly where their next decision begins. But there is one final detail you need to hear before this story moves forward. Your soulmate's biggest realization was not simply that you might leave, it was that you may have already changed. They can sense that the version of you who once waited, wondered, and searched for answers is becoming someone who no longer needs uncertainty. That realization shook the entire dynamic. Now they are wondering whether you would even respond the same way if they finally opened their heart. They are wondering whether the door they assumed would always remain open is beginning to close naturally as your life moves forward. Stay till the end, because this is where their private feelings begin turning into a real decision. They know words alone may no longer be enough. They know that if they truly value this connection, something has to become different. And here is the once-in-a-lifetime realization they never expected to face: the possibility of losing you finally showed them exactly how much they wanted you to stay. Not because you chased them. Not because you convinced them. But because imagining life without your presence made everything they had been avoiding suddenly impossible to ignore. Don't skip, because what happens next goes deeper than missing someone. Your soulmate is standing at an emotional crossroads, and the choice forming in their heart could completely change what happens between you next. Something changed inside your soulmate the moment they understood that your leaving was no longer just an idea, it could actually happen. Suddenly, every comfortable excuse they had been using disappeared. They could no longer tell themselves there would always be another opportunity. They began thinking about what your life might look like without them in it, and that picture brought an unexpected realization. While they were hesitating, you were growing. While they were trying to understand their feelings, you were becoming stronger, clearer, and more certain about what you deserve. Don't skip, because this is where their reaction becomes completely different from what you might expect. They started remembering moments they had previously treated as ordinary, only to realize those moments were never ordinary at all. A conversation they replayed afterward. A small detail about you they somehow never forgot. A moment when they almost told you something important but stopped themselves at the last second. Now all those unfinished moments are returning at once, and they are beginning to see the pattern. You mattered far more than they allowed themselves to admit. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. The possibility of you leaving has forced them to confront one question they can no longer avoid. If they truly feel this strongly, why have they remained silent for so long? And the answer surprised even them. Their silence was never proof that they felt nothing. In their mind, silence felt safer than making a move before they were certain. They believed waiting would protect the connection, but now they are realizing that waiting may have created the very distance they never wanted. Don't skip, because this realization changes everything. They are beginning to understand that you cannot build something meaningful entirely through unspoken feelings. At some point, intention has to become action. And suddenly, your soulmate is looking at you differently. They are noticing that your energy no longer feels like someone waiting for permission to move forward. You seem ready to choose yourself, your peace, and whatever future feels right for you. That has awakened something powerful inside them, not because they want to control your decision, but because they finally understand that your presence was never guaranteed. Something huge is waiting for you, because their thoughts have shifted from wondering how they feel to wondering what they are prepared to do about those feelings. For perhaps the first time, they are imagining themselves actually saying the words they kept postponing, explaining the silence, and showing you what they once believed could remain hidden forever, but there is another layer to this that they did not expect. As they imagined you walking into a new chapter, they realized they were not only afraid of missing you, they were afraid of becoming a person who looked back and knew they had allowed something meaningful to disappear simply because they waited too long. Stay till the end, because this is the realization pushing everything toward the next move. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that some opportunities do not announce when they are about to change. Sometimes a person simply becomes tired of uncertainty and quietly chooses another direction. And they sense that you may be approaching exactly that point. That is why their emotions feel different now. The hesitation that once slowed them down is being replaced by clarity. They know they cannot decide your future for you, but they can finally decide whether they will continue hiding what is in their heart. Don't skip. The biggest surprise is still ahead, because there is one specific truth they have been carrying about you that they never planned to reveal. Your possible departure has brought that truth to the surface, and once it is spoken, the entire story between you could look completely different. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next chapter is not about what your soulmate felt yesterday, it is about the decision they are forming right now. Now the silence feels completely different, because your soulmate has reached a realization they can no longer push aside. The thought of you leaving made them look back at everything they never said, and one truth kept appearing again and again: they always believed they would have more time with you. More time to understand the connection. More time to become certain. More time to finally show you what was hidden beneath their quiet behavior. But now that certainty is gone. Don't skip, because this is where everything begins to turn. They are realizing that while they were waiting for the perfect moment, you may have been slowly learning how to live without their answers. And that thought changed something inside them. Suddenly, they are remembering exactly when they first realized you were different. It was not one dramatic moment. It was the way your presence stayed in their mind after conversations ended. The way something reminded them of you unexpectedly. The way they compared certain connections to what they felt around you and quietly noticed that something was missing. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate is finally admitting to themselves that what they felt was never temporary. They tried to place it somewhere comfortable, somewhere they could control it, but your possible departure has exposed just how deeply this connection affected them. They tried to place it somewhere comfortable, somewhere they could control it, but your possible departure has exposed just how deeply this connection affected them. Then came an even bigger realization. They began imagining what would happen if you truly moved forward and someone else recognized everything about you that they had been too hesitant to acknowledge openly. Someone else could appreciate your loyalty, your heart, your patience, your unique way of making ordinary moments feel meaningful. And suddenly your soulmate understood that they could not keep expecting your heart to remain in the same place forever. Don't skip. This is not simply about missing you, this is about them finally understanding your worth without assuming they will always have access to your presence. They started questioning every decision that created distance between you. Why did they hold back when they wanted to speak? Why did they pretend certain moments meant less than they actually did? Why did they keep waiting for certainty when their heart had already given them an answer? And then something surprising happened. Instead of finding another excuse, they finally admitted that fear of changing the connection had kept them frozen. But now the possibility of losing the connection entirely feels far greater than the uncertainty of finally being truthful. Something huge is waiting for you, because this shift has placed them on the edge of doing something they once convinced themselves they would never do. They are no longer thinking only about their feelings. They are thinking about what you deserve to know. And this is where the story takes its strongest turn yet. Your soulmate has realized there may be only one way to stop wondering what could have happened. They have to become honest before your new chapter carries you somewhere they can no longer follow. Stay till the end, because what they are preparing to acknowledge goes deeper than simply saying they miss you. They want you to understand why they stayed quiet, why certain moments felt unfinished, and why the possibility of you leaving affected them so strongly. But there is one question they cannot answer, and it is the question making everything feel urgent inside their heart: have they realized all of this in time? Don't skip, because that uncertainty is pushing them toward a decision. They know they cannot ask you to stop your life simply because they finally found clarity. They know they cannot erase the time that has already passed. What they can do is stop hiding behind silence and allow you to finally see the truth. And the truth is much bigger than they expected. Imagining your absence did not create their feelings, it revealed feelings that had already been there. Something huge is waiting for you, because now your soulmate has one final choice: remain silent and always wonder what might have been, or finally step forward and let you decide what happens after you hear everything. But tonight, one thought keeps returning to your soulmate, and no matter how hard they try to move past it, it refuses to disappear. What if you really leave before they finally tell you everything? That question has completely changed the way they see this connection. Before, they could convince themselves that silence was temporary, that someday the right moment would arrive naturally. Now they understand something they should have understood much earlier: the right moment does not always arrive on its own. Sometimes you have to create it. Don't skip, because this is where their biggest inner shift begins. They have started replaying the moments when you gave them opportunities to be more open, the moments when one honest sentence could have changed everything, and they finally recognize how often they chose hesitation instead. Yet the most surprising part is not their regret. It is what they discovered underneath it. They realized they were never confused about your importance. They were overwhelmed by how important you had become. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. The possibility of you moving forward has removed every comfortable illusion, leaving them with one undeniable truth: if they continue doing nothing, they may eventually have to watch your story continue without them. And that realization has awakened a completely different version of them. Instead of asking, "What if I say too much?" they are beginning to ask, "What if I never say enough?" Instead of wondering whether honesty could change the connection, they are wondering whether silence has already changed it. Don't skip, because their next realization is even bigger. They can sense that you are not the same person you were when this story began. Something inside you has become stronger. You may still care deeply, but you are learning that caring about someone does not mean putting your entire future on hold. Your soulmate sees that shift, and suddenly they understand why the possibility of you leaving feels so real. You are not trying to prove anything. You are simply becoming ready for whatever comes next. Something huge is waiting for you, because this has forced your soulmate to stop thinking only about what they might lose and start thinking about what they could finally give: honesty, clarity, consistency, and the truth they kept buried beneath countless unfinished moments. They know they cannot control what you choose after hearing it. But for the first time, they would rather risk being fully understood than remain forever misunderstood, and now everything comes down to one decision. Your soulmate has reached the point where remaining silent feels heavier than finally opening their heart. Stay till the end, because the revelation forming inside them is not simply, "I don't want you to leave." It is something much deeper: "Should have shown you sooner why I wanted you to stay." That difference changes everything. Don't skip. They are beginning to understand that real feelings cannot survive forever as possibilities and assumptions. Eventually, someone has to become brave enough to make the truth visible. And your possible departure has made them realize that moment may be closer than they ever imagined. They are thinking about the words they would say if they had only one opportunity to explain everything. They are thinking about the question they would finally ask you. Most importantly, they are thinking about whether there is still enough time to show you the side of themselves you have been waiting to see. Something huge is waiting for you, because there is one final truth they have not yet confronted, the reason they kept returning to you in their thoughts even when they tried to convince themselves they could move on. And when that reason finally becomes clear, their next move may stop looking like panic and start looking like the decision they should have made long ago, and then came the realization your soulmate was never prepared to face. The reason they kept returning to you in their thoughts was not habit, curiosity, or coincidence. It was because something about you had quietly become part of the future they imagined. They may never have told you that. They may have acted calm when their mind was anything but calm. Yet once they learned you could actually leave, everything they had carefully kept beneath the surface suddenly became impossible to ignore. Don't skip, because this is where the meaning of their reaction becomes completely clear. They were not shaken simply because something was changing. They were shaken because for the first time, they pictured a version of tomorrow where you were no longer waiting somewhere inside their world. And strangely, it was that picture that showed them what your presence had meant all along. They remembered the way you understood things they struggled to explain. They remembered moments when your words stayed with them much longer than you probably realized. They remembered how many times they almost reached toward you emotionally, only to stop because they believed there would always be another chance. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate has now discovered the difference between having feelings and being ready to stand behind them. And they know that if they want any possibility of remaining part of your future, hiding can no longer be their answer. What happens inside them next is even more surprising. Their thoughts begin moving away from the past and toward one very specific possibility. What would they say if they finally stood before you with nothing hidden? At first, they imagine explaining every quiet moment, every hesitation, every time they wanted to tell you that you mattered but chose easier words instead. But then they realize explanations alone would not be enough. Don't skip, because this is the point where their entire perspective changes. They understand that you do not need another mystery. You need clarity. You do not need endless promises about someday. You need to know what is real now. And suddenly, the question inside their heart is no longer whether they should tell you. The question is whether they are prepared for whatever answer you give afterward. That is enormous, because until now they were protecting themselves from uncertainty. Now they are beginning to accept it. They understand that you may welcome their honesty, or you may decide your journey has already taken you somewhere different. Either way, they would rather give you the truth than allow silence to make the decision for both of you. Something huge is waiting for you, because this is the first time they are considering a move based not on fear of what could happen, but on respect for what this connection has meant to them. And buried beneath that decision is one confession they have never been able to make. There was a moment long ago when they almost chose you completely. That moment is now replaying in their mind with incredible clarity. They remember how close they came to revealing everything, and they remember exactly why they stopped. They believed they needed more certainty. They thought time would make everything easier. Instead, time made your value clearer while also teaching you how to move forward without waiting for anyone. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate now understands that your leaving would not erase what existed between you. It would simply prove that meaningful connections still require meaningful choices. Don't skip, because their next realization changes the entire story. They are no longer asking themselves how to convince you to stay. They are asking how to become honest enough that, whatever you decide, you finally know what was real inside their heart. That is why their next move could feel completely different from everything that came before. No more vague signals. No more hoping you somehow understand what they never expressed. No more assuming tomorrow will provide another opportunity. They are approaching a point where one conversation could reveal everything they kept hidden. And just when they thought they had finally understood their own feelings, another truth surfaced, one connected to the exact moment they first became afraid of losing you. That moment explains why they pulled back, why they remained silent, and why hearing that you might leave affected them so deeply. What they remember next could change the meaning of their entire story with you. There is one memory your soulmate keeps returning to now, because they finally understand what it meant. It was the moment they first realized you could become more important to them than they had planned. Something about the connection stopped feeling ordinary, and instead of moving closer, they became quieter. They thought distance would make everything easier to understand. They believed that if they waited long enough, their feelings would settle into something simple. But they never did. Don't skip, because this is where the hidden pattern finally becomes clear. Every time they tried to place you in the past, something reminded them that the story still felt unfinished. A familiar thought would return. A memory would suddenly feel vivid again. They would wonder where you were, how you were doing, whether you still thought about the moments that remained in their mind. Yet they kept telling themselves there was time. Then they learned you might leave, and suddenly the future they had been taking for granted no longer felt guaranteed. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your possible departure did not suddenly make you valuable to them. It forced them to recognize the value they had been avoiding. And now they are facing the hardest question of all: why did it take the possibility of losing your presence for them to understand how much they wanted to protect the connection? The answer has changed everything inside them. They realized they were waiting for certainty that could never come without action. They wanted to know how the story would end before they were willing to truly begin it. But connections do not work that way. At some point, someone has to speak. Someone has to stop interpreting signs and start offering clarity. Don't skip, because your soulmate is finally approaching that point. They are imagining what it would feel like to stop hiding behind carefully chosen words and simply tell you what happened inside them. They want you to know that their distance was not always indifference. Sometimes it was hesitation. Sometimes it was uncertainty about how to handle feelings that had become stronger than expected. But now they also understand something important: their reasons cannot become excuses. You deserve the freedom to choose your future based on truth rather than unanswered questions. Something huge is waiting for you, because this realization has transformed what they want from their next move. They are no longer thinking about dramatic promises. They are thinking about one honest conversation, one moment where nothing important remains hidden. And there is one sentence they keep imagining saying to you, a sentence they once thought they would never have the courage to express: I knew you mattered to me long before I was ready to admit how much. And now the entire story stands at a turning point. Your soulmate understands that learning you may leave has given them something they never expected: clarity. Not certainty about what you will choose, but certainty about what they can no longer keep hidden. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. They know you may already be stepping into a chapter where you no longer accept half-spoken feelings or endless waiting. Strangely, that does not make them want to hide anymore. It makes them want to finally meet you with the same clarity you have discovered within yourself. Don't skip, because the